You know how they say you almost save the best for last? Well, I can't say because everybody's been wonderful, but I am looking forward to our next speakers. There are actually two that are going to come to speak to us today. And this is Miss April Bracken. April is the branch manager, consumer lender officer with Renasant Bank. She is a seasoned branch manager and consumer lending officer. She has her A.A.S in human services from the University of Hawaii and her B.A.S in psychology from St. Leo University, and is CBA Certified Consumer Lender. Ms. Christy Brackin is a seasoned HR professional, having 23 years of human resource management experience. Christy obtained her Senior Professional in Human Services, or SPHR, by the Human Resource Certification Institute. And she also was certified as a Senior Certified Professional with SHRM by the Society of Human Resource Management. Holding both certifications through, Christy was an HRCI certification chair for the Mississippi State Council of SHRM. Christy's career, she's maintained focused on always doing the right thing in business by building and coaching employees, managers, and executives in every aspect of people management. They have several topics. One is on bias, and also is who's your neighbor? And I want to finish before is to let you know that Christy and April are married. They have 4 daughters, a 28-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 15-year-old, and a 14-year-old. They enjoy all kinds of activities as a family. So it's my proud honor to introduce you to Miss April and Christy Brackin.
Thanks everyone for being here. We are very excited to be here when Miss Tina reached out to us to get us to give our opinions on our circumstances and how we can be inclusive and accepting of all. I have been in the community working here in Effingham for about 4 years. We moved here in 2017 from Mississippi. I see some familiar faces. One of the very first things that Renasant encouraged me to do, whom I was with in Mississippi as well, was to get out in the community in my new role. I immediately went into the leadership class with the chamber here in Effingham, which I completed in 2018. That gave me a really new perspective on how community works. In my previous role, I wasn't able to really get out there. Here in Effingham, in my new role, I've been able to really get out and be a part of the community. My education and background, that was my whole goal growing up. I didn't know what I wanted to do and how I wanted to help folks, but I knew I wanted to help. Christy does a lot more public speaking in her HR role, so she's gonna carry most of this PowerPoint, but one of the reasons why we're here, and I'm with Lamisha, I was a little nervous, and I still am, and I shared that with my kids that are at home. We have 2 in 9th grade and 1 in 11th, and they're all girls. They are very comfortable with our family dynamics, and they always have been. But I did talk it over with them because they're a part of that too, and if we're going to be in the community, they have to be comfortable as well. And they have been so encouraging, and that is why I'm here. And when we went out on our first break, we were talking about why we were here. I want to make a better tomorrow for our kids. And I want them to be able to be who they are anywhere that they are. And when I came back in, I want to share just quickly with you before I turn it over to Christy. I got a text from my daughter, Madison. So I just want to briefly read it to you. She says, "Good luck today, Mom." She said, and my other mom. She said, "You've got this, and it's okay to be nervous sometimes." She said, "You're going public with your home life." And she said, "There's going to be a lot of opinions, but it's going to be okay because I know you're both strong and you're both independent." This is my 15-year-old. She said, "It doesn't matter what anybody else has to say because you're happy and you have to be you." So that reassures me that we have instilled that already. So I'm going to turn it over to Christy, my lovely wife here in HR for 23 years. She's going to go over unconscious bias in the workplace. A lot of times we don't always knowingly judge. A lot of times it is consciously, but most of it is ingrained. And we both grew up, like I said, in Mississippi, in the South, Southern Baptist family background. So we're very happy to be here and use this platform to show others. So.
Absolutely. We'll just swap spots. Okay, so I'm the talker. I've talked for a really long time, for a lot of years, to a lot of people. And I'm very happy to be here to talk to this group today, both the ones present here in the room and those that may be on Zoom or watching online. So I want to thank everyone for coming and for being open-minded, as someone else has said, and trying to learn what does diversity mean and how can we get there? It seems like a never-ending, just out of reach thing that you can never grasp. So we're hoping that through this conversation, all these conversations today, that we can open other people's minds to be just as inclusive and diverse as you obviously are wanting to be since you're here. So thank you. Just a little visual there, just to let you know a little bit about what that looks like. Unconscious bias is really what we're talking about, and a lot of other words that go along with that thrown up there, and I won't read them all, but neat little visual. The Society for Human Resource Management defines unconscious bias. It says it refers to a bias that we are unaware of, as April mentioned, and which happens outside of our control. It's a bias that happens automatically, and it's triggered by our brain making quick judgments and assessments of people and situations, influenced by our backgrounds, cultural environment, and personal experiences. There were other definitions obviously out there, but maybe from HR, I had to pull one from Society from HR Management. So go ahead with your next slide. Want to do a little activity. You don't have to answer out loud if you don't want to, but if you do want to, wonderful. So for question number one, let's see who thinks this is a bias and who thinks it's not. Given a job to a candidate you clicked with because you went to the same school or you're interested in the same hobbies is not unconscious bias, especially if they're different gender or ethnicity from you. Is that true or false? Okay, we'll see in a minute. We're going on to question two. Everybody has unconscious biases. Is that true or false? Oh, you're winners. Okay, let's go to the next slide. If I had candy, I'd throw it. That's what I like to do in new employee orientation. So the first one obviously is false. This is an example of affinity bias, which means you're favoring someone because you have things in common with them. So you, like they said, went to the same school, or maybe you have the same bubbly, upbeat personality as I do, or maybe we've been in the same committees together or something. So you have a little bias towards that person, right? I mean, it just kind of comes natural, you think. Answer number two was true. You all got that right. You're all winners in my book. We all have biases. Being biased does not mean you're a bad person. Everyone would be a bad person then, because we all have them. Our brains have to constantly make decisions, and they often rely on previous experiences or preconceptions to speed up the decision process. If a car's coming at you at 60 miles an hour and you're standing in the middle of the road, what's your first reaction? To run, right? Because you've been taught that if you don't run, that car's going to run you over. So it's the same principle here. Your upbringing and everything that goes into your head as you're growing and you're learning makes you think, what do I need to do? And your brain is trying to act quickly. So you have these unconscious biases that tell you, yes, I'm going to include this person, I'm going to be nice to this person, or I'm not sure, I feel a little uncomfortable, I'm going to stand over here. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. Okay, next slide. There are a whole lot of unconscious biases. I mean, this is just a small list. I noticed there are other HR people in the room. Hello, thank you for being here. Affinity bias, I mean, I know that all the HR people are familiar with this. Some of you others may not be, but affinity bias, we talked about, attribution bias, beauty bias. Okay, I read I cannot remember the numbers, and I'm a data person, but there are so many CEOs in the United States who are over 6 foot tall. I forget the numbers, like 60% or something. It's crazy, but it's because taller men put off a big persona, right? I mean, because their size. So I thought that was intriguing that, 60% or gosh, I wish I could remember the exact number for that, but so many CEOs are over 6 foot tall. Why is that? I don't know. Unconscious bias, maybe. Confirmation bias talks about when we look for evidence that back up our own opinions rather than looking at the whole picture. So we have these preconceived opinions in our brain of what an outcome should look like, or what a banker should look like, or what an HR person should look like, or act like, or talk like. So we have these preconceived notions. That's what that one's talking about. Gender bias. Pretty self-explanatory there. Halo effect is when you're really impressed with someone or a feature that they have. You're so impressed, in other words, that you're biased toward them. You tend to be drawn toward them. And then the horns effect is absolutely the opposite of that. It's where we focus on one particular negative feature about a person. Maybe somebody has a beard and I don't like beards, so I don't like that person. I mean, obviously I don't care, beard, no beard, whatever, but I'm saying that's a good example of the horns effect. You pick out a feature of someone that you don't necessarily like about them, and that is your bias that you have towards them. Okay, next one. This one got a little messed up, but like I told you, the 40 on the right side there, top 40 unconscious biases. There's so many out there. Some of them, I put them up there because some of them are really funny. Ostrich effect, and it's kind of funny.
Let's elaborate a little bit on the ostrich effect.
Oh, the ostrich effect is
that really, for our circumstances and the reason we're here
today,
to represent.
Well, let me tell you about my mother. Again, born in Mississippi, raised in Mississippi, moved here 4 years ago. And when I say Mississippi, I mean I'm right on the Alabama line, even spent my last high school years in Alabama. So we're talking, really deep South, Bible Belt, Mississippi, Alabama. My mother, we don't do same-sex things in this house. We don't talk about it. We don't, that's the way I grew up. Okay, so my mother, bless her, I love her, and she loves April. She loves me. She doesn't like to love April because, that was how she was brought up, that's not okay, it's not good. But, so she has the ostrich effect. She has her head in the sand, and she just doesn't look, she doesn't talk about it, we don't mention it, but she's accepting of April. We just don't talk about it.
And that spills over into so many places. And I didn't know where we were going to go with the mom thing, but that's one of the ones that is a perfect example of an ostrich effect. Just putting your head in the sand. If you're sitting at a table with someone and maybe you guys are just chit-chatting personally, you and your husband, where did y'all meet? I have to think about, am I going to be able to say, I met my wife at, or do I need to go ahead and say, I met my spouse here? Sometimes that throws people off a little bit and they kind of look at me a little strange. I have to judge my crowd to see who I can be honest with. Because most people will just put it here. So instead of continuing the conversation, it just gets put in the sand. Yeah, very good point. So what impact does unconscious bias have on diversity and inclusion? A lot, in fact. I mean, unconscious bias affects inclusion as it is often defined as stereotypes, prejudices, and deeply held beliefs which lead us to favor one thing, person, or group over another in a way that is usually considered unfair. And that's pretty much
That's it in a nutshell. The negative impacts that can be seen from unconscious bias, being excluded from more formal or informal networks, denial of mentoring or developmental opportunities at work, differential management practices, excessive monitoring and documentation and that kind of thing, disproportionate blame for an incident, assignment to less desirable positions or job duties, treating normal differences of opinion as confrontational or insubordinate, characterizing normal communication as rude or aggressive, penalizing a person for failing to get along with someone else, for example, a coworker or manager, when one of the reasons for the tension is racially discriminatory attributes or behavior of the coworker or manager. And that's pretty bad stuff. And so we're here today to talk about, how do we, go ahead to the next slide, please. What do we do about it? How do we overcome it? To get workplace diversity and inclusion right, you need to build a culture where everyone feels valued and heard. Did everyone hear that?
Yes.
You need to build a culture where everyone is valued and heard. Okay, next slide. And the steps to overcoming unconscious bias. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. What we want to do in the workplace, we want to be flexible. So hence the FLEX, the focus within, tune into your emotions, recognize how your experience has shaped your perspective. That's where most of our unconscious bias comes from. Stick to facts and don't make assumptions. And in our case, don't be afraid to ask. I want to brag on my family. I want to brag on my life of 23 human resources for 23 years. I want to, I want to be able to do that. Learn about others. Again, ask questions. Think about how your actions may impact others. E, engage in dialogue, like we're doing today. Listen to understand. This is a big one. Listen to understand, not to debate or respond. If someone is really trying to speak with you and talk to you, listen to understand. And offer your views without being defensive or combativeness. One thing that I love and I'll go into the expand because I love the X with Renasant. We call that the X factor, which is a lot of what it's built on. And at Renasant, over the last year or so, we have been putting together at the corporate level a diversity and inclusion program. And with everything going on in the world, they have not put their head in the sand. They have opened their eyes and they've recognized whether it's women's rights, LGBT plus, they're really being open. How do they do that? They asked us. They sent out surveys. They opened up kind of a portal where we could go in and put anonymous suggestions in there. When I was preparing to be able to be here today, I did go through my corporate diversity officer. I did want their blessing to be able to represent Renasant because in my time and my tenure there, which is almost 10 years, I have changed. My life has changed a lot over the decade, and they've always been supportive. I've had great leaders above me who have always been supportive, even when I didn't realize it. They may pull me aside. I had one officer pull me aside after we were married, which, by the way, wasn't legal until 5 years ago. So you can see how short amount of time, and we're standing on the stage today. But he pulled me aside and he said, "I think I have some congratulations to give." Like, really? Yeah, I heard you got married over the weekend. This is an older gentleman who'd already retired once and came back because he was bored. I had no clue he knew. I had no intent of sharing for fear of rejection. And he said, "I just want to congratulate you. That's awesome." And I just kind of opened my eyes to say, okay, I'm comfortable here. So I'm here, and I hope that I can continue that. But I got sidetracked, sorry about that. The X factor pointed that out. On the expand the options, brainstorm, talk about it. Be flexible, and again, that's what we're doing, we're gonna be flexible. Experiment and evaluate, ask opinions of your employees. Put it out there, give them a voice, let them be heard. And then seek out those diverse perspectives and respect their opinions, even if they're different from your own.
And I didn't put any data in my slide, as you can see, but I did want to mention that there are 4.5% same-sex couples in Georgia. That's around 356,000. That's of 2019, when the census survey came out in 2019.
And we also found out that 55% of same-sex couples actually reside in the South. Right? I saw some eyebrows go up. Right? Because, and that kind of leads into kind of our last thing, know your neighbor. I'm going to take that literal this time. Know your neighbor. Who lives next door to you? Sorry, I'm straying away. Who lives next door to you? Who works in the office next to you? Get to know your neighbor and ask them questions. You know, they're more than just one thing. I'm sorry.
Basically, okay, guys, benefits of workplace diversity. I know you know what the benefits are. There's not a slide for it. I just want to go over a couple of things. You know, one of the best things that I can say about workplace diversity is it gives you a variety of different perspectives. Several years ago, I worked for a company. I did a lot of traveling, and we had a research and development center in New Jersey. And so I went up there a lot, and in that research and development center, we had people from all over the world working there. I mean, we literally had people that did not speak the language that needed an interpreter in the office to talk in meetings. So we had people from everywhere. And you know what? Those were some of the best years of my working life, because I got to hear so many diverse opinions, so many different views, and I'm not talking about just life, I'm talking about even in work. You know, people really think differently outside of my head. Wow, that's a big thought. They think differently than I do. They have different ideas. And you know what? A lot of times they're better than mine because they're smarter than I am. They've learned things I haven't. So different perspectives. If you want them, ask people who are different from you. Ask people who are different from you. You have higher innovation. I saw that on someone else's slide earlier. Increased creativity, faster problem solving. Saw that on a slide. Better decision making. Increased profits. Who doesn't want increased profits if you're a for-profit business? Higher employee engagement, reduced employee turnover. Right now, we need to keep our employees that we have. How do we do that? We ask their opinions, we involve them, even if they look different, especially if they look different and act differently than us. Improved hiring and retention, I just mentioned, better company reputation overall. Who doesn't want that? Next one. And to end it, change starts now. Change starts here at this conference. Change starts in Effingham County. Won't you join us in being a part of that change and talk to other people that you work with, talk to your neighbors, get to know them on a personal level, because that's the only way you're going to be able to make a difference, is by talking to people and getting to know them. So I encourage you all to do that. And again, thank you for listening. We appreciate it.